Okay, today we're going to be talking about the Pilgrims. In the early 1600s, religious persecution was alive and well in England, but this time it wasn't the Catholics and Protestants. This time it was the Church of England against those who wanted to break away from the Church of England. King James I, who was the son of Mary, the Queen of Scots, was very serious about everyone following the Anglican Church, also known as the Church of England. Remember, Church of England was basically Catholic light. They held on to a lot of the same practices, beliefs, a lot of the same just ideas that the Catholic Church had. Really the only reason that the Church of England was created was because the Catholic Church wouldn't give King Henry VIII an annulment, so he broke away and created his own church, but they kept most of the same beliefs. There were two groups of people who opposed the church. One was the Puritans, who wanted to reform the church so that it would be less like the Catholics and more like their biblical idea of what a church should be. The other group, the Separatists, believed that the church couldn't be reformed and wanted to separate completely from it and start their own church, again based on their idea of a biblical church. Some members of the Pilgrims were William Brewster, William Bradford, and John Robinson. These guys were part of a group who tried to start a church in the town of Scrooby, not Scrooby-Doo, Scrooby, England. The persecution got so bad, though, that they packed up, left England to live in Holland. This didn't really work out like they wanted either, so they started looking for somewhere else to go. The Pilgrims that left England and went to Holland, most of them were farmers. When they got to Holland, there was nowhere to farm, so they ended up having to work in factories, and they hated it. They couldn't make enough money to take care of their family. They worked all the time, just no freedom at all. It was not what they wanted. The settlement at Jamestown was going pretty good about this time, so the Pilgrims decided to give the New World a try. Just like with Jamestown, several businessmen agreed to finance the trip in exchange for payment from the colony. The Pilgrims started out on a ship named Speedwell. Later, they also picked up another ship named the Mayflower. When the Speedwell kept having problems, it was returned to England, and the group continued only on the Mayflower. When the Pilgrims started out on the Mayflower, they had 30 crewmen and 102 pilgrims. Only 35 of the 102 pilgrims were separatists from Holland. The rest were other pilgrim families that they picked up from England and people they call strangers. These people didn't have any religious reason to be going to the New World. They were just looking for a profit. Now, this is a replica of the Mayflower. That's the ship that they were on. There's 132 people on that ship for a couple months while they crossed the Atlantic. Not me, boy. If I'm going to sea, that's what I'm taking. Instead of arriving in Virginia like they planned, they had planned to go pretty much the same place where Jamestown was. They're at the Chesapeake Bay, Hudson River area of Virginia. But they didn't make it there. They were blown farther north by the storms, and they ended up landing at Cape Cod. Since they were not where the businessmen sent them, the Pilgrims decided that they didn't have to abide by the contract that they had made. They decided they would set up their own form of government, and they sat down and they wrote up the Mayflower Compact. This document would eventually be an inspiration for the United States Constitution. John Carver was elected as the first governor of the new colony, which they ended up having at Plymouth. You've heard of Plymouth Rock. The official landing was on December the 26th, 1620. That's a date you'll want to remember. Since they arrived in the middle of winter, the Pilgrims were not able to plant any crops or gather other food supplies. This led to the Great Sickness. Nearly half of the Pilgrims died that first winter. Later on in March, the Pilgrims heard someone speaking broken English, saying, "Welcome, Englishmen." This was a Native American by the name of Samoset. He introduced the Pilgrims to another Native American who spoke really good English named Squanto and Chief Massasoit. Squanto, as I said, spoke almost perfect English and served as a translator for the chief. Him being able to translate for the chief and them being able to understand each other, the Pilgrims and the Native Americans, led to the Wampanoag, who were that's the name of the tribe that was there. It led to them and the Pilgrims signing a peace treaty that lasted almost 50 years. It's interesting how much better it works when you don't go into a place trying to take over, but instead you respect the natives and you live in peace. Pretty cool, huh?